So we may as well kick things off, Peachy, my boy, with the best permanent transfer from the summer just gone. Kick things off for us, Peachy. Who do you think has been the best permanent transfer from the summer?
I've already spoken about it, haven't I? It's Joe Rodon to Leeds for me. I picked him out earlier on in the summer, and I don't think there's been a transfer that's eclipsed it in my eyes. Look, let's be really honest here. £10 million is a steep transfer fee. Not a lot of Championship clubs will be able to pay that. That being said, Leeds can afford it. Not only have they had a decent commercial contract with Red Bull come in and land, but they've also sold a lot of assets this summer. So their pockets are swimming with cash. They are Scrooge McDuck. They're oozing with dollar bills coming out of their pockets. And why not spend a little bit of money on a top quality centre half? And what you're getting with Joe Rodon is a Premier League ready defender. He's far too good for the Championship. He's got every facet you need in a centre back. Physically, he's tall, he's quick, he's good in the air, he can play with either foot. And on a technical level, he's composed. He'll find his target when he's passing from the back as well. Brings calmness into the defence. And he's comfortable with both feet. And that really helps both playing out from the back, but also when you're in a 1v1 with an attacker, you can shift weight quickly. He'll be a key contributor for Leeds going up this season. If they do go up, won't curse it now. But if they're going to compete for promotion, Joe Rodon is a key player in that scenario.
Yeah, I agree with you, Justin. This is a cracking move. I've always said if Leeds got promoted last season, the first player they had to sign was Joe Rodon. The fact that they still got him despite not going up is very impressive. And yes, you're right, it is a lot of money, but does it really matter when you know what you're getting with him? And I think it's a really crucial thing with this signing is Leeds knew what they were getting with him because he's just spent the last year with them already. So there's not going to be any surprises with that. So yeah, I also think this is a top move, Peachy. And I think he could become a modern day Leeds legend, because if he does achieve promotion with Leeds this season, I would fully expect him to still be playing for them regularly in the Premier League as well. And considering Leeds haven't had many years in the Premier League over the last 20 years or so, he could very much cement that position as a Leeds modern day legend.
It's an interesting one. I mean, Leeds have had so many legends, but if you compare him to the players that they've had over the past couple of years in their Premier League spell under Bielsa and Jesse Marsh and Sam Allardyce, he's probably arguably pound for pound the best centre half I think they've had in that time. One who's very much ready to play in the Premier League, who's capable of playing in the Premier League as well. You know, they have had good players come through the doors, but I don't think they've quite fitted the bill at Leeds and also in the Premier League as well. But as Joe Rodon he's the guy. He's got everything you need in that defender. He's a Welsh international as well. There's the leadership aspect he brings. I love him, man. He's just so good. I can't. Having a player of his quality in the Championship who isn't an attacker gets overlooked, but as a defender, he's by far the best.
Yeah, and still 25, 26. So he's still got many years ahead of him, and that partnership with him and Pascal Struijk, if they do go up, will be a solid Premier League centre-back pairing for the next couple of years at least. Let's go to my best permanent signing of the summer. It's Harrison Burrows to Sheffield United from Peterborough for £3 million, potentially rising to £6 million. Now, anyone who's seen my YouTube video, which has just gone out on a Wednesday, will know my top 10 transfers from the summer already. So go watch that if you haven't. But I picked Harrison Burrows out as my number one. And the reason why is this. I thought it was an ambitious move from Sheffield United to get Harrison Burrows in the first place. And then when I found out they got him for only £3 million, I was amazed. He has been one of the best young talents in the EFL for several years now, and has just been getting better and better. And last season couldn't have gone any better for him, really. 22 years old, captain of his local club, played all but one league game for Peterborough, 6 goals and 15 assists from left-back, League One Player of the Season, and scored twice in the EFL Trophy Final to win Posh only their second trophy in the past 50 years. Like, how can it possibly have gotten any better than that, apart from Peterborough getting promoted, I suppose? But just think about that for a second. How good must you be if you're winning Player of the Season for the whole league as a left back. It's crazy, really, isn't it? So at 22, he's got so much potential. I would expect him to be a regular in the Premier League in the near future, and I wouldn't rule out England squad at some point either if he is playing regularly in the Premier League too. So this should be a phenomenal bit of business for a player I rate very highly, Justin. What do you think?
I do rate him very highly. I'm just going to pull you up on the England comment, because the last 3 seasons you've mentioned 2 left backs and linked them, or not linked them, but suggested that they could be in contention for the England squad.
Right. Why do you always turn your nose up at Championship players playing for England?
Because I'm Gareth Southgate.
Well, you are. Well, he's not even in charge of the squad anymore. But you are aware that 15 of the latest 23-man England squad played in the EFL at some point. You do know that, don't you?
I am aware. It's just having heard you suggest that Ryan Giles and Leif Davis can be in contention for the England squad without them having played in the Premier League. I think sometimes it can be overambitious, but
hang on, no, Justin, that's just ridiculous. Because the 15 players we just mentioned there didn't play in the Premier League beforehand, I'm assuming. So what's your point?
But Eberechi Eze, for example, didn't play in the Championship, get a move to the Premier League side, and then go in straight into the England squad. He had time in the Premier League. You need to give these players time to adapt to their level, and Harrison Boris has got to adapt to the Championship first before adapting to the Premier League before we get too carried away.
What's wrong with being a bit ambitious and talking about the potential of these players?
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just suggesting
it sounds like there's something wrong with it, because you pull me up on it all the time.
I'm just suggesting that the last couple of seasons you've mentioned both Ryan Giles and Leif Davis, and Ryan Giles is now back in the Championship, and Leif Davis has got the opportunity to push on.
You're judging me on a player who's only just coming to the Premier League, and may I point out how's Ivan Toney got on? How's Calvin Phillips got on? What about Jared Bowen, Mark Gurhey, Abiri Eze, Levi Colwill, Morgan Gibbs-White, all players I've said will play for England, Justin?
All have had time to adapt to the Premier League. Couple of seasons.
What's your point? I don't get it.
My point is, it's just it's quite easy to get ahead of ourselves. But I do agree with you. At Championship level, £3 million, Harrison Boris is a very good signing. Very, very good signing. He's versatile as well. I was going to mention Leif Davis and Ryan Giles anyway, because both of them have excelled at left wing back for the respective clubs over the last 2 seasons, getting an incredible amount of assists. Could we see a similar season from Harrison Boris this season?
Hopefully. I mean, he's got such an unbelievable left foot that it wouldn't surprise me. And if he's getting 15 assists in League One, I think Leif Davis got around 15 assists as well. So he could very easily get Leif Davis numbers this season as well. He's also on set pieces for Sheffield United, so it wouldn't surprise me. I actually think at some point he may actually move into midfield, just because I think he's so good that he may need to have more of an influence on the game. But I mean, if we are looking at this from an England perspective, we're a bit short on left backs at the moment, aren't we? So anyone, whether it's Leif Davis, Harrison Burrows, Ryan Giles, we'll take anyone who's going to progress into their career. So yeah, I'd love to see him get playing in the Premier League at some point, maybe with Sheffield United, and that could very well lead to an England call-up at some point. As we were alluding to at the top of the show, we are going to be doing some honourable mentions for these different categories that we've got here, Justin. So who are you giving an honourable mention to for best permanent signing?
It's someone I feel disgraced not mentioning, but Kiefer Moore's one of them. Look, he scores goals. I know we're coming off the back of a weekend where he missed a penalty against Watford, but he scores goals. Not in that particular scenario, but he scores goals. He contributed really important goals for both Ipswich and Bournemouth in their promotion seasons. He's also scored a few really important goals in the Premier League for Bournemouth. That needs to be said as well. On top of the 20 he scored for Cardiff in the 2021 season. He's just so good. I love him, and I think if Sheffield United are going to have success, I know he's 32, but you build a team around him. I think he's still got a few years left as well in the Championship or even the Premier League. I think he deserves a proper crack at that. And probably if Chris Wilder is a guy there, he's going to get the best out of him, because we've seen it in previous years.
I'm not surprised at all that you mentioned Kiefer Moore because it wouldn't be a second tier podcast episode if Justin Peach didn't mention Kiefer Moore at some point, because he's very much a big fan of old Big Keith, isn't he? My honourable mentions, I'll give a shout out to Michael Cooper, another Sheffield United one. I just rate him so highly as a goalkeeper, and I think for £2 million he's got such a bright future. Hannibal Medri at Burnley is the other one who I wanted to give a mention to, because even though he's not the cheapest of signings from the Championship this summer, I think Burnley have got themselves a good deal there, and at 21 years old, still got plenty of room to grow. And I was quite surprised, actually, that he did drop down to the Championship, so a pretty good move from a Burnley perspective. Let's go to best loan transfer of the summer in the Championship. Peachy, what you got for me?
I've gone with Tom Cannon to Stoke from Leicester. I'm going to defend you a bit here after previously attacking you for your left-back taste. I remember you getting pelters last season for suggesting that Tom Cannon was a bit of a silly transfer for Leicester.
Really? I don't remember it, Justin. I don't recall either getting loads of stick for saying Leicester massively overpaid for Conor Cody either. But, you know, my memory's just failing me here. But carry on.
No need to step off your high horse. Stay on it.
No. Keep talking about our great town. I'm liking this.
Going back to my overarching point, he played just 13 league games, starting 3. This isn't a slight on Tom Cannon. It was just a silly transfer. I don't think Enzo Maresca had any idea how to use him, because Tom Cannon's not a player who's going to contribute massively to a team's overall play in the final third. There are games when he was at press on loan at Preston where he had several touches of the ball in a half. But you don't have to have an impact on an overall play to have an impact on a game. You just need to score goals. And my God, does Tom Cannon score goals. He's a hitman. He's an all-round good number 9. He's got so much room to develop. And I think if he can stay fit as well, he had back issues last season, still should have played more. But as a guy who I think if he's given a fair run in a team, stays fit, he can deliver at least 10 to 15 goals. He got 9-20 for Preston on loan 2 seasons ago. Give him a run, give him supply, he'll put chances away. And I think Stoke, with the quality they've got around him, I think that's a good signing.
Yeah, I agree, Justin. I think this is a good move for all parties, really. And I may have not been a massive fan of the move to Leicester last year. As you say, I did point out that it seemed like a bit of a strange move. But he needs to go somewhere where he's playing regularly. And Stoke need a striker. I'm not sure what it will mean for him in the long term, whether it's a case of him putting himself in the shop window for a move to a Championship club or becoming a regular starter at Leicester, but he just needs to be playing regularly, doesn't he? And that's the main thing for his development as a player, because he's still very young, isn't he? And he's not going to develop unless he is playing regularly in the Championship. So that's why Stoke seems like a good move for him.
Yeah, this is why if you're going to sign young players, you've got to give them game time, because they become big assets, which is why, again, I think Leicester have really shot themselves in the foot here, because I think if he'd have played last season, he'd have scored goals for Leicester. If he'd have played more often. I mean, I think he scored 3 off the top of my head, which isn't much, but you know, he wasn't given a fair run in the team. You give young players a fair run in the team, they'll show you what they can do. And Tom Cannon's already shown that. You look at Cameron Archer at Championship level, both Preston and Middlesbrough, scores goals, and hopefully he's going to do that. In the top flight as well, with Southampton. Just an example there of young players excelling on loan in the Championship. If you give them game time, they do well.
Let's go to my best loan transfer of the summer. I've gone with Karamoko Dembele to QPR from French side Brest. Now, firstly, I think Karamoko Dembele is an excellent pickup for QPR in the first place, but they reportedly also got the option to make the move permanent for 1.4 million. And that's what makes this the best loan deal for me, because that should be unbelievable value. I imagine most people listening will probably remember his early hype when he was at Celtic and he was playing at a ridiculously young age. And I mean, his career stalled after that, but that loan to Blackpool last season really got things back on track. 8 goals, 13 assists. He only became a first-team regular in mid-November as well, by the way. And when you've got a 21-year-old doing that, whatever his background is, it's very exciting, even more so when it's him who had all this early potential and hype that we haven't really seen yet until quite recently. And look, he's also looked very sharp for QPR in these first few games. So if this loan leads to him joining for less than £1.5 million, when he is still only 21 or 22 by the time that transfer potentially happens, this will be an unbelievable bit of business for a very talented young player, Justin.
Yeah, Dembele's a standout. He really is. He's starting to excel already. He's averaging almost 9 shot-creating actions per 90 minutes. He's getting players into good goal-scoring positions, and that's the highest in the Championship so far. I know it's early on in the season, but that level of creativity is already a positive because QPR haven't been putting up any trees. They've been very, very average so far. And you just have to think if players were playing up to his standard, they might be higher up in the Championship after 4 games, so they might be scoring more, etc. But Dembele and what he's delivering so far it's brilliant. It's good. It's a really good positive start. And I know you mentioned that his career is stalled. I remember reading an academy director's sort of view on a player's progression, and they don't start to hit their stride until they're 20, 21 years old. So I know it's quite easy to be distracted by the hype from a player's point of view when they're about 15, 16 because of breaking through. They're putting up so many trees at a youth level. They don't quite make the step up to senior level. But I think Dembele's on a good path. And I think playing in the Championship is a good place for him. We've seen players at QPR really, really develop and improve. Some stall, but some, it's a good place to go and play football. And I think Dembele's in a great place to do that. I'm excited by how he can progress. I really am. I think he's got bags of potential. And as you say, so much value in that deal.
I will just quickly say that when making my video the other day for the best signings in the Championship this past summer, I saw footage of Karamoko Dembele when he was 16 and playing for Celtic, and I have never seen someone look... I mean, he is a child, but I've never seen someone look like so much of a child as he does, because he's not a very big lad in the first place, but he genuinely looks like a schoolboy.
He still looks about 14, 15 as well.
Yeah, he looks so young, it's unbelievable. But hopefully he does kind of find some of the early potential that he was being tipped for. Any honourable mentions for you, Justin?
I've gone with Festia Epicelli. He's on loan at Watford from Udinese. Don't know how that transfer came about, but it's a good loan signing nonetheless. He adds so much explosiveness down that right flank, and I think Watford for quite a few years have been crying out for a really good right wing back to play in whatever system they're going to play in. They've really chopped and changed down there. And having watched him at Derby while he was still very raw, I'm really excited to see what he can bring 2 years down the line from that breakout season. I want to include Ben Nelson as well, on loan at Oxford from Leicester. Again, still very young, still carrying some experience to probably really excel in the Championship, but I think he's one that can grow. Really comfortable with the ball, can play right back as well. I'm just very, very positive about Oxford's recruitment. I think Ben Nelson is one of those that could have gone to several clubs in the Championship, and he's got that quality.
Yeah, Festia Epicelli was such a thrilling player when he was at Derby. I've never seen... I think he may be the fastest player I've ever seen. He was absolute gas, wasn't he?
He was.
Very little end product, but he was just so quick. He was getting absolutely kicked to shreds every single time. To be honest, I haven't really kept up with how he's been getting on over in Italy or whether he's been playing much at all. But you're right, it's no surprise to see that he's back in the Championship with Watford, and hopefully he does develop, because he was such an exciting player to watch, and hopefully we get to see more of that this season. My honourable mentions, I've got to pick out Manor Solomon at Leeds, just because, considering Leeds lost Crescencio Somerville and Jorginho Ruta, it's almost an impossible task trying to replace those two. But I think Solomon is pretty much as good as it's going to get in terms of making tracks to replace them. And then the other one I wanted to pick out was Callum Doyle to Norwich, because I think that could be a really clever signing. A couple of seasons ago, he was phenomenal at Coventry, and he was only 19 at the time, played 41 league games for a side which got to the playoff final. And from that point, I was certain we were talking about someone who'd be playing regular Premier League football in the not too distant future. And then he went to Leicester last season, where he was playing regularly until a nasty knee injury kept him out for a while and led to him losing his place in the team. But he's still only 20 now. still has bags of potential. And I think this signing went a bit under the radar earlier in the summer. So it could be an excellent move from Norwich, Justin. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the Callum Doyle move. I really do. I've seen Norwich fans oozing over him already. And again, we're only four games into the season. He just brings that calmness in possession.
For a 20-year-old as well, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying this when he was at Coventry when he was 18, 19 years old. So it's only going to get better, isn't it? It's only going to get more composed. He's only going to continue making the right decisions on the ball. But as well as that, there's an aggressiveness to him, which you don't really see from these, nice, fancy centre halves who like to play with the ball. He's got a bit of bite as well, which is absolutely necessary, especially at second tier level.
Yeah, I rate him very highly. I think he's got a very big future despite a disappointing second half of last season with Leicester. Just before we take a quick break, Justin, guess who's back in football? None other than Stevie Bruce. He's the new head coach of Blackpool in League One. And I'm putting this firmly in the category of things we love to see, Peachy.
Yeah, we do. I know we spent a large portion of his West Brom tenure criticising him, but rightly so. But I think he needed to move to a club that, even in the Championship, that had lower expectations, that had lower budget, that had, who needed to play to his style. And I think he's such a softly spoken, nice guy in football. He needs to reignite his career and maybe his love for managing. And I think Blackpool is a really good place to go and do that. So it's great to see. He's gone down to League One. He's put the ego aside. This is great. This is really good. And actually, no, I won't say that. I was going to say something about Chippy, but yeah.
He's got plenty of chippies to choose from, hasn't he? And hopefully we get to hear more about how's the bacon, you see. I mean, it's got to be said, 2023 became the first calendar year since 1978 where Steve Bruce hadn't managed or played in a game of professional football, which is insane, really, isn't it? So I'm glad that's changed and we've got old Brucey back in our lives. But I agree with you, Justin. I know people will turn their nose up at this kind of thing, but I think he could actually do quite well at Blackpool because for way too long he's been choosing jobs which are where the expectation's too high, like Newcastle, for example, or West Brom to a lesser extent, where they were aiming for promotion despite not having a clear plan. Whereas when he was at Sheffield Wednesday before and the expectation was a bit lower, he did really well. So I think Blackpool could be a really good move for him. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there.
No, as I say, it's just really good. I did have to look twice and double check the account because I thought it was a piss take at first, which goes to show how much of a coup that is for Blackpool. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they progress, really, because to get a manager of his calibre in League One we don't really ever see it, to be honest with you. So it's great, really good, great move.
Yeah, I agree. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll go through some of the clubs who have had the poorest and best windows in the Championship. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and here we are doing a roundup of the transfer window just gone in the Championship. But if we may, Justin, I thought we may take a quick dip into the third tier to talk briefly about possibly the story of the whole summer in the EFL, really. It's Birmingham City's Brat Summer. They spent £30 million in this past window, despite, of course, being a League One side now. That's more than every Championship club except Burnley. It includes a £15 million move, potentially rising to £20 million for Jay Stansfield. It's been absolutely crazy what they've been doing, hasn't it, Justin?
It's been bonkers. It has been bonkers. Just to spend that level of money in the Championship for a club that don't have parachute payments is, you would argue, reckless, risky as well. Not all of these players will work out. That's a guarantee. Not all of these players will sell. And unfortunately, you might make losses on some of these transfers. But I think one thing they are taking advantage of is the fact that they don't have to deal with profit and sustainability in League One, which is the big motivator. That's the boring side of it. But the fun side of it, or the funny side of it, is just the sheer amount of cash they've thrown at players in League One. which, again, there's just no guarantee that they're going to be competitive in League One. I'm not doubting that Birmingham will go up. I'm just suggesting that sometimes it's better to recruit players who have played in League One and are seasoned League One pros who know how to get out of that division, rather than going to the German second division and spending £5 million on a midfielder. It's just a risk. It's just a risk.
I mean, it is a risk, but every transfer's a risk in some way, isn't it? I know we'll inevitably get rebranded the third-tier podcast for even taking a second to talk about a team not in the Championship, but one would assume it won't be long until we're talking about Birmingham City again. It's like they're essentially taking a gap year from the Championship, isn't it? Which is understandable considering they spent so long doing very little. So I can understand why they would want to take a year out to just kind of travel and taste other cultures or something like that. And I did say when they got relegated that I had never been more confident of a side bouncing back at the first time of ASCII. And the reason for that was because I was of the understanding that they would be spending a lot of money if they did go down. But even then, I never expected this amount of spending.
No.
4 of the top 7 most expensive signings in League One history have been done by Birmingham this summer. It's crazy numbers, isn't it? And I wonder how the manager, Chris Davis, feels about all this, because if he doesn't get Birmingham promoted, that could be his managerial career done and dusted just like that, couldn't it?
Yeah, there's an unbelievable pressure on him. Unbelievable pressure.
Unbelievable pressure, Justin.
And you are right. If it does go wrong, it could be his managerial career over. But there's so many things he's got to blend together. You know, there's the entirely new squad. There's egos in and around it with big transfer fees and potentially fairly inflated wages. But he's got a good pedigree and he's been linked with a lot of jobs for a long time. So he's probably more than ready to step up. But it's just a level of spending. I think we are sort of having a bit of a joke about it, but the owners at Birmingham City have done really good things around the club, been very positive. I know we gave it a lot of stick for their decision to sack John Eustace last season. It was the wrong decision. They've learned from it. They're paying the price now. They bought up a lot of land around St Andrews Stadium as well, which is interesting. We'll see how that progresses and what they do with it. But spending £15 million on a striker at League One levels, bonkers. Really, really bonkers. I rate Jay Stansfield, but £15 million, I don't rate him.
Not for 15 million. Yeah, no. I see what you mean. It's going to be fascinating if they do get promoted from the championship back into the Championship this season, to see how they're shaping up heading into the new season. Because Ipswich were the first team to get back-to-back promotions, considering how ambitious Birmingham have been. Who knows? It could be a very similar scenario, but just because we've never seen anything like this before, it provides a lot of questions, doesn't it?
Just one more thing.
Yep.
League One, Birmingham City, Ryan. Yep. This is our house.
This is our house. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Tim Ragnar being back in the Championship at some point with his cringiness. Oh, good stuff. Let's discuss which clubs have had the best and poorest transfer windows then in the Championship, Justin. I just wanted to quickly point out, I've not been judging this on who's come in. I'm also taking into account who's left and who they've managed to keep hold of, as well as who's come in. Just clearing that one up. I will also say, I think we're going to disagree quite a bit on these picks, Justin, based off what you've gone with. But go ahead, reveals to us which club you think has had the poorest transfer window, first of all.
I've gone with Millwall. I will add that I've actually been fairly impressed with a lot of recruitment around the Championship this summer. And I do think Millwall have made good signings. But
Stop
I think
covering your back.
No. I think the reason why I'm throwing Millwall into the mix is because Neil Harris spent a large portion of the last 6 weeks really pissed off at the lack of movement in the transfer window. Like I said, I think they've made some really good signings. Jaffet Tanganga is already proving his worth. He's a really good signing at Championship level. Lucas Jensen's a good prospect in goal. Liam Roberts is a good backup option. Josh Coburn is a really good loan signing. They lost Cian Fleming, which is a huge blow. Other deals seem a bit rushed. Ryan Wintle, for example. He's never really excelled at Cardiff. He does bring an element of ball-playing ability to this Millwall midfield. But is he going to be a big difference maker? I don't know. I don't think he will. They have signed Mihajlo Ivanovic, a striker as well. He looks a good prospect, but he's arrived with a metatarsal injury, which reportedly keeps him out for 8 weeks. Although there's now conflicting reports of him being with the Serbia squad. Macaulay Langstaff, again, is just he's a signing that I wouldn't have made at Championship level, and he's not yet been given consistent time on the pitch, although there's room for that. But for me, I think Millwall lack depth in certain areas. I think they lack pace as well. I'm just a little bit concerned with the depth, and I think Neil Harris is probably not satisfied with their transfer window either.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I saw that you had Millwall down as the poorest transfer window in the whole of the Championship this summer, Justin, because I would actually say they've had one of the better windows out of all the clubs in the Championship. I think, first of all, Japhet Tanganga on a free transfer is a great bit of business. I think that's one of the standout transfers in the whole of the Championship this summer. I think Lucas Jensen in goal is another one who's coming from Lincoln. Someone I think could be one of those moves that goes under the radar, but is actually really, really good because he was the best goalkeeper in League One last season. Femi Aziz from Reading for 1 million, a young lad who is very highly rated at Reading. He's done really, really well down in League One, and for 1 million is a superb bit of business. I will admit I don't know much about Mihajlo Ivanovic, but for someone who's a teenager, they spent a fair bit of money on him. I'm going to assume he's no slouch, so I'm interested to see how he gets on. And then finally, Josh Coburn as well, a brilliant young striker who we were just saying at the weekend, we have always said deserves more of a go at Championship level. So that's why I don't get why you think they've had a poor window, Justin. I think it's actually been pretty good. Like
I said, I think Neil Harris has said himself that he's been really frustrated with the lack of movement. In addition to that, I don't think they've got depth in other areas. If Jake Cooper gets injured, they've got Murray Wallace to step in. They don't really have depth at centre half, which is problematic for a team who will flip between playing 2 centre halves and 3 centre halves throughout the season. And like I said, I think they've made some decent additions, but for their overall squad depth, it's problematic. Femi Aziz, again, potentially does represent a good deal, but I know Reading fans can be frustrated with him, have been frustrated with him at times, and he's also delivered moments of magic at times. So it'll be interesting to see how he steps up to the Championship. I think it's been a very frustrating summer for Millwall. They've lost Ian Fleming, who I know he was a bit inconsistent last season, but if he gets going and he has a season they had the season before last season, then he's one of the best players in the division. When you lose a player like that, it's very, very difficult. And also it's a loan to buy option. It's not straight cash in the pocket, so they can't reinvest that. So yeah, I think it's been a frustrating summer for Millwall. I think other clubs have probably had marginally better ones, but I think it's a very close bracket, a very, very close bracket.
I'm not sure I agree with that at all. I think the club which has had the poorest transfer window in the Championship this summer is Plymouth Argyle. Now, considering Plymouth are a club I usually associate with fantastic recruitment, I'm not really sure what's happened here this summer. They were so poor in the second half of last season, particularly after losing Finn Azaz and Luke Kundal, and so they clearly needed a bit of an overhaul. And I don't think they've done anywhere near enough. Rami Al-Hajj, who they've signed on a permanent from Odense in Denmark, looks an interesting player. Ibrahim Sissoko on loan from Toulouse has looked quite exciting on the wing for Plymouth so far. I'll give them that. The rest of the players, they'll need to do a fair bit of convincing to show they're good enough for Championship level, because they've either not done it at this level before, or we just don't really know much about them. And by the way, that includes Michael Obafemi, whose career has taken a bit of a nosedive over the past 2 seasons. The big positive for Plymouth this summer has been keeping hold of Morgan Whittaker, and thank God they did, because otherwise they would be in deep shit. But despite that, this squad is looking short on numbers and seriously lacking in quality. And I've seen a lot of Plymouth fans raising similar concerns. So I would say Plymouth, definitely for me, the worst transfer window of the summer. Justin, do you agree?
I do and I don't. I know it's quite flaky, but I think when you keep hold of Morgan Whittaker, that's such a massive coup. And they do have quality in the final third anyway. I know Sissoko's had some very exciting moments so far, so that's, again, be intriguing to see how he progresses. they've got some decent depth in attack. I know Michael Ofemi again is one where, like, if he plays well and he's confident, then he's gonna score goals. But we've not seen that since a bit of a run in the Swansea team, probably 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. And Ryan Hartley again, if he stays fit, there's a player there who scores goals. I know I'm talking about players already there last season at Plymouth, but I think their attack is well depth. I think it's probably more so defensively there. They needed a bit of overhaul, maybe a bit of experience they needed coming in the summer as well at the back that they didn't go out and get. Nathaniel Ogbeta is a player who hasn't really been fancied at Swansea, so it'd be interesting to see how he progresses. So I do agree with you to some extent, but I think keeping hold of Morgan Whittaker, Ballymumba, players, these big assets that could have easily gone to other clubs if big bids have came in. It could have been easy to take the money and try and reinvest that, but they didn't. They held their ground and kept hold of the key assets.
Sounds like you're putting a lot of weight on them keeping hold of Morgan Whittaker in this conversation.
If Plymouth are going to stay in the Championship, and it's honestly a big if, Morgan Whittaker has to be at the club. And they've kept hold of their biggest chance of staying in the Championship. So, yes. Of course, it carries a lot of weight keeping hold
I think there's still a very strong chance, as things stand, Justin, that they still end up going down, even with Morgan Whittaker in the team.
Yeah, potentially, yeah, because the squad is shorter than a lot of other squads in the Championship. That's absolutely true. But again, if let's say Stephen Schumacher was in charge of this side, as he was last season, would you have as much confidence in them staying up with the transfer window they've had as you do with Wayne Rooney in charge?
No.
So a lot of it comes down to managerial the aspect as well.
No, wait. No, I wouldn't have confidence if Stephen Schumacher was there either. Because I just think the squad is just lacking so much right now, no matter who's in charge. And the manager certainly doesn't help things either. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's do some honourable mentions, Justin, or honourable mentions. Should we say dishonourable mentions on this one, I suppose? Who else do you think has had a pretty poor window?
I was quite excited about Portsmouth in the initial stages of the window, and then they struggled to get players out. They've got quite an inflated squad, and as I say, they need to ship players out. Colby Bishop, taking Gill as well, was a massive blow, and I don't think they've been able to go out and sign another striker to come in. So I think Portsmouth, although very excited earlier on in the transfer window, as the transfer window progressed, I'm a little bit disappointed with the moves they've made or haven't made.
I need a bit more than that, Justin. Come on, talk me through it, because I don't agree with you on this one at all.
They've got a big squad. They've been unable to go out and sign as probably as freely as they needed to in terms of the quality they had to go out and get. I know Matt Ritchie's come in, which is great, second coming and all that, but he's 34 years old. He's going to be 35 in a couple of weeks. Is he going to really deliver? I don't think so. Josh Murphy, again, a lot of time and effort went on bringing him into the club. I'm not convinced by that. You can go back to earlier on in the summer about my thoughts on that. I'm not massively convinced by Josh Murphy. And again, a lot of it comes down to the lack of, I wouldn't say quality in the final third, because I do think there is quality, but when you've got a 20-goal a season striker who's out injured, yes, you're not going to be able to go out and get another one. But because of the squad size that they've got and the players that they've been able to unable to shift, they've not been able to go out and get a young player on loan, for example, to come in and cover the Bishop blow. So again, Portsmouth sort of fall into that category for me.
Yeah, I don't agree with this, Justin. I don't think they've had a spectacular window, but I think it's still been a good one. I think Jordan Williams is a good addition on a free transfer. Josh Murphy could be great when he's back from injury. Of course, we've spoken quite a lot about how brilliant he was at Oxford in the second half of last season. I'm intrigued to see how Sammy Silvera on loan from Middlesbrough gets on. I think that could be a decent little move. One signing which has perhaps gone under the radar, but could be another interesting one, is Freddie Potts on loan from West Ham. He was excellent on loan at Wickham last season, even won their Supporters Player of the Year award as well. So he's another one who I think is a pretty good addition. Andre Dazelle could be a good pickup as well. They've signed a few young players I don't know much about. There's Harvey Blair who's coming from Liverpool, who I'm intrigued to see more of. But to say this is a poor window for Portsmouth, Justin, I think you're wrong about that.
I mean, I alluded to it at the start. I think a lot of clubs have recruited really well, and Portsmouth have made some good signings, as have Millwall, as I've already spoken about. I just don't think they've had as good a window as they probably needed to have to really sort of settle themselves into the Championship. There are other clubs which I'll speak about in a moment that I think have had a positive window. If we look at Derby, for example, they're a club who have had, I think, a positive window. Not groundbreaking, but they've gone out and addressed a lot of imbalances in the squad. And I don't think Portsmouth have quite done that. And I think, as I say, a lot of the weight carries with Colby Bishop's absence. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. He's got to take his time with the illnesses that he's taken ill with. So therefore, I think they needed to go out and sign a player who can come in and replace him. It's difficult with the budget, obviously, but you've got to make that effort.
I'll give a dishonourable mention to Luton Town. I actually had Luton down initially as having the poorest transfer window in the whole of the league, but I changed my mind at the last minute, and I'll explain why shortly. But look, I'm surprised I'm sat here right now saying Luton Town have had a poor transfer window. Unfortunately, that is the case, though, because they're one of the best run clubs in the country who I often think can do no wrong, but I get the sense this summer has really not gone to plan for them. There were a fair few rumblings of discontent from supporters after it got to mid-August and Luton had only signed 2 players, and Rob Edwards had even admitted that it's been a challenging few months for the club. And when it got to deadline day, I was looking at that squad thinking they could do with at least 2 or 3 players, and they didn't get anyone. So you're looking at it now, 6 signings, and their most significant addition is Mark McGuinness, and even then £10 million is a pretty eye-watering figure. Tom Krause, who's a German midfielder they've got on loan from Mainz, looks a good player based on the underlying data that I've seen. But the big saving grace for Luton is that they've managed to keep hold of some big players like Ted Mengi, Thomas Kaminski, Alfie Doherty, Tav Chong. That's what stopped this from being a terrible window for me, because it's still a very good squad that they've got there. Just with Luton being Luton, I expected things to go better than they did. Justin, do you see what I mean?
It's hard to deny that things just haven't gone the way Luton needed them to go this summer. And I know they already had a decent squad, but it just felt like they lost a lot of the old guard that they probably needed to keep around the squad. I know you've got a 25-man squad to contend with, so players probably do need to move on. But they're just players that have moved on that they, as I say, they just needed to probably keep around for leadership, for experience in the squad, because they look naive defensively. They look inexperienced. They're making some really bad decision making on the pitch, which just doesn't happen and hasn't happened for a long time at Kenilworth Road. And as I say, there might be a bit of a transition period coming in, but just they didn't need to be busy in the summer, but they needed to be proactive, and they weren't. They were more so reactive. And I think when you're reactive, I think it limits the pool of quality you can go out and get. And I think we've found that with Luton this summer.
And you don't expect that with Luton, do you? Because they are such a well-run club. So it's been a real surprise how things have gone for them over the summer. Justin, let's round off the show with the clubs that we think have had the best transfer windows this past summer. Who you got for me?
I've gone with Middlesbrough. I'm looking at a squad now and it brings a smile to my face. It shouldn't do, because I'm a 30-year-old man sat at a laptop talking about football, but it's really pleasing me at the level of squad depth that they've got. And as I say, I don't think Middlesbrough needed to go out and sign a load of players this summer. They already had a decent squad, but they recruited so smartly, so intelligently. They've got 2 players for every position, which is an absolute beaut of a situation to have in the Championship. I'm just looking at the centre halves. They brought in George Edmondson on loan, which again doesn't pull up trees, but he adds depth into that back line. They brought in Neto Borges as well. Again, they've got on loan, I should say. So there's more depth at left back. Aidan Morris came in earlier on in the summer, so there's a midfielder there with a bit of bite, but also he's very composed on the ball. And then of course you've got Tommy Conway, Delano Bergsorg, Mika Hamilton. There's technical quality that's come into that final third. Ben Dokes coming on loan from Liverpool. They've had a very good squad that they've made even better. And they've done that being very, very smart, very candid in their recruitment, very sort of very picky as well. And that pleases me greatly because I don't think any club has had a smarter transfer window and therefore better window than Middlesbrough this summer.
I will be honest, Justin. Middlesbrough didn't enter my thinking at all for the club who had the best transfer window. But now that you've explained it a bit more, you have won me round a bit because I think you're right. I don't think Middlesbrough did need to, overstretch themselves and sign a whole new squad of players. I think you are absolutely spot on. They just needed a few more additions here or there to add a bit more depth and deal with the rigours of the Championship. Aidan Morris, I won't profess to have watched him loads of times for Columbus Crew, but I've been really impressed with him so far. I think he looks like a really talented young midfielder. Tommy Conway, we know loads about. I'm still not sure I would put them in the top 5 transfer windows of the summer for me, but still, you have won me round and made me appreciate what they've done a bit more, I would say, Justin.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting because, it's all about our perceptions, and I think when you've got a squad like Middlesbrough that was already decent, and also they've kept hold of Latte Lach, for example. That was a big move. Dale Fry seemingly cannot get a move outside of Middlesbrough, which is absolutely bonkers because he's one of the most consistent defenders in the division. So they've kept hold of assets as well. But I think a lot of the business they did last summer is paying fruition now. But they've also added the quality, and again they've spent wisely in January because Dan Barlas is a great ball playing midfielder. Finn Azaz is already one of the chief creators in the Championship this season. I'm in love with this squad. It's for me, it's one of the best squads that hasn't had 30 or 40 million chucked at it. Outside of the parachute payment teams, it's so smart, bloody intelligent.
I have picked as the club which has had the best transfer window as Sheffield United. And considering how bad their situation looked initially coming down from the Premier League, they have done brilliantly. They had a lot of players go out the door, many of whom have been at the club for a long time and helped get them promoted on more than one occasion. This could have been a really messy season for Sheffield United after what was such a disastrous campaign in the Premier League. And instead, they've used it as a chance to revolutionise the club. Harrison Burrows and Michael Cooper, I've mentioned already, 2 of the best transfers of the whole window as far as I'm concerned. Callum O'Hare, I would throw in there as well on a free transfer. Kiefer Moore, you mentioned earlier, Justin, you can't really argue with $1.5 million for someone as good as him. But the 3 loan signings they brought in as well, Harry Souttar's not had a great couple of seasons, but was one of the best centre-backs in the division before leaving Stoke for Leicester. Alfie Gilchrist from Chelsea, very highly rated young right-back, and could be a great move that goes a bit under the radar for the Blades. And Jesarun Raksaki from Crystal Palace, one of the most hotly sought-after players in the whole window. And Sheffield United won the race to get him. Definitely one to keep an eye on because he seems very, very highly rated. They've also signed Tyrese Campbell, Jamie Shackleton, Sam McCallum on free transfers as well to add a bit more depth to the squad. But it's not just their incomings, because keeping hold of Gustavo Hamer, Ollie Arblaster, Arnel Ahmedhodzic and Vinicius Souza, that's huge. They're 4 players who I wouldn't have been surprised to see playing top-level European football somewhere this season. But Sheffield United have managed to keep a hold of them, and they seem committed to this season's promotion push. So it's been a sublime window, which has completely transformed expectations at Bramall Lane, when I think many were a bit worried about them coming down from the Premier League this season, Justin.
I think rightly so, because they had the old guard moved on. It's as simple as that. The players that made themselves legends at the club have all moved on. The likes of John Egan, McBurney, etc. You don't need to go over it, but a lot of the club that identified, a lot of the fans that identified with the players, they've all gone. It's been a complete culture shift, and that's been massive. And it's going to be an ongoing process. Don't get me wrong, but I think what they've been able to do is they've made a really bad situation. Let's be honest, it was a bad situation, and they've made it very, very positive. They still need a lot more depth, I think, but I think what they've been able to go out and do this summer has been quite remarkable. Even just keeping hold of Ollie Arblaster, who I saw that Brighton were sort of rushing to get a bid in to replace Billy Gilmore. So if you're holding off clubs for a player who's really stepped up very quickly, you're in a really good place. I think that this is maybe controversial, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this. I'm not enamoured by the Callum O'Hare signing. I'm very pleased with all of the other transfers that the club has done, because they are very good deals, right through from Jamie Shackleton to Tyrese Campbell. It's just the Callum O'Hare one. I've never been drawn to him in the Championship. He's got a lot of technical quality. I just feel like his decision making at times just really just let him down. He's 26 years old. When is it going to get better?
I mean, it's a great way to round off agreeing with me with a piping hot take. I just think a free transfer, Justin, you can't argue with that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been surprised if he went to a Premier League side this summer. You are right, his decision making and his final product has been something which has really let him down in his career. But when you give him the ball and he creates something out of nothing, I don't think you can really argue with a free transfer. And 26, he's still got loads of years left. So I won't disagree with you on the Callum O'Hare bit, but I'm glad you agree with me with the rest of the Sheffield United bit. Any honourable mentions for clubs who have had brilliant transfer windows, Justin?
Well, I did have Sheffield United written down, but Oxford, I think, for me, they've been brilliant. They've recruited quite smartly. Jack Waldron, who's quite sort of held in very high regards at Oxford, I think has done a really good job of piecing together a squad that is competitive in the Championship. I've already spoken about Ben Nelson. Peter Kyoto, I think, is a great signing. Again, he's a signing. He's the right back who was on loan at Peterborough last season and came in from Rotherham. And I think he's a player who's got the quality to step up, versatile as well. They've brought in Malcolm Ebiowei on loan, which I think is smart, because I think if you can get him, confidence is regained. You've got a player who can turn the game on his head. Dane Scarlett, again, is a player who's incredibly raw, needs to step up, but someone there who fits into Des Buckingham's ethos of pressing and whatnot. And I think Matt Phillips actually quite smart as well. He's not going to pull up trees, but his experience, he's got a good sort of physical aboutness to him. He's got the experience at championship level. So, and Sriki Dembele, I haven't even mentioned Sriki Dembele. I don't know how or why he's not staying at Birmingham in League One, but he's a player that excites me greatly. Really, really does. I just think they've done really, really well. And obviously Cameron Brannigan signing a new deal is huge.
Yeah. I'm a bit on the fence with a lot of Oxford's business. I know I've disagreed with you quite a lot in this episode, and I apologise. I've clearly just got a stick on my backside today, haven't I? I agree with most of what you said. I think Jamie Cumming in goal is someone you didn't mention there. He's a really good keeper from Chelsea. Will Volks, good signing for a side looking to stay up. Idris El Mazzouni, I think, could turn out to be a bargain at 400 grand from Ipswich, and Ben Nelson, you've already talked about there. The rest of the business, Sriki Dembele, he's such a frustrating, inconsistent player he's not a huge amount of end product at championship level, has he? So I'm not as sure about that as a lot of people are. I think they've gone a long way to increasing squad depth, which is so vital in a championship season. Overall, I would say it's been a good window for a club with their ambitions. They've not overstretched themselves, which is a good thing as well. I don't think it's been an amazing window, Justin. Give me that.
No, I won't. I think it's been a really good transfer window with their budget, with their pull as well. I think it's been great, and I think we're going to see Des Buckingham hopefully really, really thrive, which is exciting. They excite me a lot.
Well, that's good to hear. I would like to give an honourable mention to Bristol City. I've been impressed with what they've done this summer. They've got a clear philosophy now of trying to sign players in their early to mid-20s who they perceive to be value and then developing them. It's something every championship club of their ilk should be doing, but so many seem to struggle with getting their heads around that. I think a clear example of them doing that is signing Scott Twine for $3 million, Luke McNally for just under $2 million. Two players I'm a big fan of, but weren't getting a look in at Burnley, but can now properly flourish at Bristol City, I think. Particularly Scott Twine being back under Liam Manning, who really got the best out of him at MK Dons. And Sinclair Armstrong as well for $2.5 million. A very raw player right now, but with the right coaching can become an excellent attacker. Fali Mayulu for $3 million from Rapid Vienna. We're still getting to know him as a player, but I've been impressed with him up front, as I say, many a times, Justin. Tammy Abraham vibes with him. And then they've also brought in Marcus McGuane from Oxford, who fits the philosophy too. I'd be interested to see how much he features for Bristol City this season. So their business has really stood out to me this summer. Justin, are you in agreement with that one?
I am. They've been really impressive. And again, they're a side that I probably would have picked if it wasn't for Middlesbrough's increasing squad depth. Another point I want to make about Bristol City actually is they're a bit of a parent club for Oxford. You got Mark Sykes, Marcus McGuane, Rob Dickey, Rob Atkinson, Luke Manali, all formerly Oxford players. So you just know if you do well at Oxford, you're going to end up at Bristol City.
Yeah. Did you mention Rob Dickey as well?
I did mention Rob Dickey.
You did mention Rob Dickey. I was going to say, yeah. That's another one. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. They are a feeder club, are Oxford to Bristol City. Why not? Well, there we go, ladies and gents. This has been kind of our roundup of the transfer window across the Championship. And just a reminder that there is no preview show tomorrow because there's no football, apart from, I don't know, Estonia versus Kazakhstan or something like that, which I don't want to review.
Just saw the cogs going on. Right, international teams.
Yep. Estonia v Kazakhstan, the first ones you go to every time. I don't want to review them because it's not the Championship, and we are fully committed to that, as you should all know by now. But we will be next back on Sunday, where we have a second tier meets, and it's with a current Championship player who I would go as far to say is one of the most recognisable players in the whole division. Justin, would you say that's fair?
Yeah, he is. I've got to build this up, so absolutely. He is one of the world's best players in the Championship.
Didn't say that. I don't know where that's come from.
I'm selling it.
But yes, very recognisable name as far as Championship players go. So we look forward to revealing that to you on Sunday, ladies and gents. So make sure you stay tuned for that over the international break. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.